Hello YouTube, today I'm going to be talking about which decks I'd say are the best for performing Magic in different situations and scenarios. And remember, this is just all my opinion, and let's get right into it. Now to start us off, I've got the decks that I use every day, that you would bring to a coffee shop, meet up with friends, hanging out with the fellas, or even performing. You could perform at a nice venue with this, or you could perform at a very casual venue. These all have borders, so these are the back designs of the decks respectively, and these cards are the Tally-Ho fan backs, Tally-Ho circle backs, and Bicycle rider backs. Alright, now I'll talk about the differences between these two decks in a second, but let's talk about these ones. These ones feel like they're somewhere in between traditionally and modern cut. I honestly don't know what they technically are, but they seem to be a much higher quality control than your average Bicycle riderback deck that you're going to get in like a store, the standards. All right, and you can see I just did a Pharaoh that is face to back, which it would mean traditionally cut, and you wouldn't be able to do that if the decks weren't at least somewhere in between. I think this deck is a lot more traditionally cut than it is modern cut, but that could just be because I'm so much more used to traditionally cut Pharaohs, and I'm much better at them. The same goes for this deck. Now, there are other editions of these, namely the Expert Web Press editions and the Penguin Elites. So, the Penguin Elite editions are about $5 a deck on Penguin Magic, and they look like this. Let me get a deck out here, but they actually have a slightly different colored tuck case, which is very interesting. That is probably, I don't know, it's probably the most obscure difference between them. So they've got no seal, they've got a different colored tuck case, and the cards are actually on thin crush stock, as you can see, it says right there, thin crush. I don't know if you can, I'm trying to get that right side up. But the cards are actually very slightly darker. So if I pull out a card from this deck and compare it to one from this pack, these ones are actually slightly more vibrant. Now that might not come through on video. I probably won't. It's very subtle, but me personally, I like the design on these ones better, and I'm not a fan of the stock this is on. I think it's much too thin. These are also traditionally cut, like fully traditionally cut, and I'm sure they are, which, that's always an upside, or at least I'd say it is, but of course it's up to your personal preference, right? And these ones, they're very similar to those, honestly. You can go either way. It's just up to personal preference. For, I think, about $7.50 a deck at the cheapest dealer, you can get the Expert Web Press version of these decks. And I would definitely recommend those. I don't have any, but I've had experience with the Expert Web Press bicycles, and I really like them. The only problem is that they are about double the price of a regular deck of Tally-Hos, which is honestly, to me, it's a huge issue. So for about $36, going down to $32, depends on what dealer you get them from, you can get a brick of both of these, half red, half blue. And me personally, I like the blue ones better, but you can obviously get the red ones just as easily. Now moving on to Bicycle Riderbacks. These are the standard playing cards, and here I've got two editions of them. Now I know there's a lot of contention, like Supreme Line, Gold Standard, Gold Seal, what have you, but these are my personal favorites. These are the original Cincinnati, Ohio print. I think these ones are from around 2001, and this is the Expert Web Press print. Now, I think these handle much better, but I put these in because they are a lot more durable. Me personally, I like to use this deck a lot more, and I think it's definitely worth your money. It's got this nice ad copy framing and everything, but the differences between these decks are, honestly, I don't think they're as big as Expert wants to make it out to be. These ones are traditionally cut. They're on thin crushed, web pressed, heat cured stock, which basically means every deck's going to feel almost the same, and I think they feel a lot better than these ones. These ones are modern cut, and they are on the older machine stock. Basically, they are retail stock from the older machine, but they're gonna last a lot longer than this deck. Honestly, this deck will warp fast, but if you're willing to put in the investment, I'd say these are better. I just wanted to bring up both because I think both are pretty important. Now, getting into something even a little more niche, we've got, and this is arguably the second most important category of worker decks. These are borderless playing cards. Now, I know that B gold standards do exist, but they are insanely rare. They're like ridiculously rare. You'd be more likely to find some Dan and Dave private reserves on the street, right? So these are my picks for the best borderless decks for the best prices. Now, these Texan ones are actually fairly expensive, all right? These Texan ones are around If you get them from the right place, they're $14 a deck. Now, they may not seem expensive, but I know there are some magicians here who know that that's a lot if you're getting these in bulk. Now, I just think the back design on these is absolutely stunning. It comes with this, so this is going to be amazing for gambling demonstrations. It's going to make your second deals a lot better, and it comes with poker guides for tricks like Best for Last by Jason Ladany. And I think that the concept of using a poker guide to explain to the audience how poker works, or even to a seasoned poker player to tell them, like, why don't you read out the next hand rank for everyone else? I think it adds so much to the effect, and that really adds to this deck. And it's got one in French too. Me personally, I'm fluent in French, and I like to perform Magic in French a lot, so this is really helpful. These were only released in Canada for a short period of time. The seal says International Playing Card Company, but this is the USPCC. It's just technically a reproduction deck. Other things about it, it is on retail stock. It is very flexible. I found this deck to be very good handling. It is traditionally cut, which I did not know until I opened the deck. I thought it was going to be modern cut, but it turns out it's not. Now, my second pick for borderless, like, gambling demonstration decks and that kind of sleight of hand is the B Lotus Backs. So these are actually not the normal ones. And I know there's a controversial pick to put over the normal Bs, but me personally, I like the Lotus Backs much better. They are cheaper. Well, actually, depends where you get them, but they are cheaper, and I think the Aristocrat Diamondback design is nicer. I like the Lotuses, and I know there's some pretty bad history behind these, but you're actually not putting any money in the pockets of the people who originally conceived of these cards, so I think that's fine. And we all know about Bs, all right? These are on B stock, which are great. You know, they last a lot longer, it's a lot thicker, and these are also modern cut. So this deck is just going to be great all around for gambling demonstrations. The biggest problem for me with this deck for gambling demonstrations is that you cannot really do table pharaohs as well. But this deck I would consider to be better than the regular Bs, because me personally, I like the design better, and they are much cheaper if you get them from the right place. And getting into a lot more niche categories, this category is decks for performing magic for other magicians. Now that may seem like a lot to you, but these are really the decks for that. These Bulldog Squeezers, you might not want to take these to, like, one of your shows, because people are going to say that's probably a trick deck, that's probably a magic deck, because it's got such a strange back design. Or people are going to really like them. As someone who brought them to shows for a little while, which was probably a mistake, I've had both. I've had people who want to buy the deck off me, and I've had older folks who say that's a trick deck, that's a fake deck, I'm not engaging in anything with that deck. Switch decks, use one of mine. All right, so this is definitely a deck to perform magic with magicians with, and having magicians in mind means you need to bring a deck that you know is, like, I don't know, I think a deck is kind of an extension of your magic. And considering that, I'd say that magicians will appreciate if you bring kind of a niche and interesting deck to do your magic with. Me personally, I love these blue cards. I have, like, probably a brick and a half of these right now. And they are just some of my favorite cards to practice with too. They handle really freaking well. These are the 2020 reprints. These are probably the most obscure Squeezers cards, which is saying something, or no, most obscure 21st century, late 20th century Squeezer cards, we'll say that, which is saying something because the drop in quality from Ohio to Kentucky with Squeezers specifically during the period that they still had the guaranteed Joker after the switch has been very heavily documented. People really don't like the changes they made to how these Squeezers feel, but they have I'm telling you, I haven't seen this covered really anywhere, but they have really stepped it up. They have really gotten so much better. These cards feel amazing. I believe they are Q1. They Pharaoh like a dream. They are traditionally cut. They've got Jokers from the Squeezers deck and the Tally-Ho deck instead of just a Tally-Ho Joker and a guarantee, which is so much better. And the second deck I would recommend performing magic to other magicians to is the Magic Castle deck. Now, I haven't seen a lot of people talk about these, but I think the design is absolutely beautiful, and it's somewhat niche. You could only get some of the Magic Castle. Now, this one specifically, you could order online for a short period of time. You could order it online until they actually change the seals. So these ones are Q1 and traditionally cut. on thin crush stock, but they actually released a newer one, which is Black Seal. The colors are a little bit more washed out. These are modern cut and on retail stock. I do not recommend this deck at all. I bought about 3 of them because I saw a review for the Magic Castle playing cards, and I thought that they were going to be these gold seals. They did not turn out to be the gold seal ones because there's very, very, very little documentation on the Black Seal Magic Castle cards, or the latest ones at least. I would not recommend the Black Seals at all, but I definitely would recommend these. These are a great deck to perform Magic to Magicians with because people appreciate that niche, you know? Now, last but not least, I have just some miscellaneous decks that I think you could perform Magic to it really depends with these decks, but I just wanted to bring them up because I do use them quite a bit. Now, I'd say these ones most fit into the category of performing Magic for magicians, by magicians, you know, but these cards really can be used for a lot, you know. If you're in a traditional Japanese setting, I found that these cards work really well. I performed for a family of Japanese immigrants, and they quite like the significance of these FISM Asia cards, and the faces are completely standard. You may think they're all weird, but you know, well, not completely standard, very standard, and these actually handle really well considering they are Taiwan playing card company, and these could be used in different contexts. I find best that they're good with like family members and people actually from Japan. And the second deck I have here are the Empire Keeper playing cards. This is another Taiwan deck, and I would put this, I would probably perform Magic with this for like a more intimate audience. This deck doesn't look like a Magic deck, but you know, it looks like it could be, if you know what I mean. This deck isn't super suspicious, but people tend to get slightly suspicious of really any deck that looks too flashy. So this kind of traditional design is really nice. I really like the cards. They handle excellently. These are traditionally cut. I'm not sure what the stock is called from TPCC, but these are great. They handle super well, and they actually look really good, I think. There are different versions of these. I actually accidentally got my hands on one of the earlier editions of these. Mine's very scuffed. If I can pull it out here. Here's, I believe these, no, these aren't the scuffed ones. There is this deck, which is just a darker and more vibrant, you could say, version of this same deck. I like this one better. I just don't know where to get it or what it is. I think it's like a V1 or something. My cards came all like very, very fucked up. If you can see them here, you can see all the corners on every card pretty much are a little bit messed up. I don't know if that's coming through, but they are very, very bad. These do, like, I have done like a couple shuffles with these, and they do handle well. These ones are just messed up. I don't know where you'd get these like darker blue ones if you wanted them, but they do exist. Now, I know there is different back designs for the Keeper playing cards, but I don't know where to get them for cheap. From my specific dealer, you can get these for about $5 a deck, which I think I'd say is pretty good. And I really like these cards. They're super flexible. I think that's their biggest strength. It's how flexy they are. They're very flexible. They spread well. They handle very well. Sorry, I'm spreading left-handed here. And other than that, I'd say that's it for the video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. And go perform some good Magic.